People approach interviews, specifically at the U.S. consulate, with a great level of fear and nervousness. And that definitely affects the way they perform during the interview, and ultimately it affects the decision. How do you deal with that? I will come back to this question again later, because you deal with the most sensitive parts of the Uzbek culture on a day-to-day basis. Like, of all the diplomats here, you have to be the one who is best trained, right? Because you see the Uzbek people every day. You deal with their vulnerabilities, you deal with their issues. People come in tears, people come in full pride. Like, you deal with the Uzbek character, which is quite complex. How do you prepare yourself for that challenge in general?
Well, I look at that as a good part of the job. We get to see the variety.
The real picture,
The real picture, and the variety of people and the reasons why they're traveling. So we'll see a lot of the grandmothers going to see their kids in the United States, or the grandkids, and we see businessmen, we see the young students, we see people who are more affluent as well that are coming for visas. So we see that variety, I think, makes consular work and the day-to-day process interesting. Otherwise, I guess persons could see it as kind of a slog. But I think it's a great benefit to be able to talk to people, even for the short period that we have, to see kind of a glimpse of what they're doing, what reasons they're traveling to the U.S. Because I'm happy that people want to travel to the U.S. I think there's so many things to see, so many things to do, so many great reasons. So I support that. Of course, at the same time, we want to make sure that people use their visa appropriately, that tourism is not work there forever. So we want to be able to facilitate good travel. But I think, yes, the work can, if you have a large number of people, it can get, you could be tired at the conclusion of your interview day, but it's also very rewarding. I think when you're, for example, when you give a visa for some work and travel person who's going to be working maybe in somewhere where you know very well.
Wendy's, McDonald's, Subway.
Or at a city, like at a tourist city, on the ocean that you know very well. You're like, I'm happy. I think they're going to have a great time. Be safe. Have a good time. I think it's nice where we see people traveling to go visit some of our national parks. And we have amazing sights to see. So
exactly.
I think we're excited for those. And I sometimes will hear interview officers maybe having even a longer conversation. And they're like, we have to kind of get back to work. But because there's some places going somewhere that's very familiar to them, and they're happy that someone gets to experience that. So.
How do you usually train for this? Because you're trained differently than other diplomats, right? I mean, to be the consulate chief, of course, and then also consular officer, your staff, local staff. What is the process? How how often do you train?
Well, there's some required training that you have to take, and there's a lot, because this visa matters particularly, but also passport issues for U.S. passports. There's a lot of rules. There's a lot of rules and regulations, and there's different rules for different visa categories. So there's a lot of do's and don'ts of an ethical as well as just kind of procedural. So there is just formal training that we're required to take. There's refresher training that we're required to take. And but by and large, a lot of people will, learn on the job, shadow people who are more experienced, and keep a special watch on new consular officers to make sure they're kind of adjudicating visas, if it's visas similarly to others, that they're not an outlier. So it's a continual training environment, I would say.
How big of a factor is the language?
It's big. I think you want to be able to understand the kind of cultural nuances. So they do. We have a mixture of Russian and Uzbek speakers. So it is important if someone though speaks a language that the consular officer is not trained on, then we'll find someone to help be an interpreter. But certainly, if you know the language naturally and fluently, then that's more of an advantage, and more advantage for the visa applicant, I would say.
There have been several restrictions overall in terms of U.S. immigration and visiting the United States in the last, let's say, 5 years, starting from the Trump administration. And so we saw that the green card got closed for a while, and for 6 months first, and then it was expanded. And so that definitely affected your work here as well. Are you back full scale on the DV lottery?
Yes, we are certainly back. And I would say that month by month of what we're processing for the diversity visa or the green card lottery, we are processing numbers that are double than what we did pre-pandemic. So the numbers are quite significant, and I would say that's for a number of reasons. I think we value the program. We know that it is of great interest here, and there's a really high participation rate in the green card lottery. It's a very uniquely American program, and we want to support that. But also recognizing that I think for a period of years there were very low number of processing and applications. So I don't want to say we're trying to make up for that, but we are looking at it this fiscal year and approaching it very aggressively and trying to get as many people as we possibly can a chance for the interview.
So those whose wins were expired, what happened? You're not considering them, right? Like I guess that 2020, 2021, or
2020 and 2021, the fiscal year DV 2020 and 2021. As you might be aware, there is ongoing litigation.
Yes.
There are several court cases on those years, and I can just say that I know that the department is looking at that and has a plan, and we're just waiting for guidance and information on the department's plan to comply with those court orders. So we're kind of in a wait and see mode. I think embassies and consulates worldwide wait and see what that plan for compliance is. But meanwhile, we're moving full ahead with this year's applicants.
2022?
2022.
I guess the message for those who are waiting impatiently is wait.
The ones from previous
years, yes, the frustrated
I think so. I think
winners.
They will just have to wait to see how the litigation, how those cases proceed, and what the guidance that the Department of State puts out on the plan to implement those court orders.
Mm-hmm. Very often we get questions about the communication with the consulate. So they usually forward us the emails, and they don't know what to do with it because they find it a bit vague in terms of what to do next. So we usually say, hey, just keep on contacting them, until you get an answer, or wait until you hear from them again. Like if they haven't updated anything, then you shouldn't really do anything. Is that a good advice?
I think so. I would say, for the pandemic, one of the problems was when the consular section was closed for a long period of time. A lot of those emails that were coming through about cases, there was extended delays, and probably some that weren't answered because, quite simply put, there weren't at periods of time. Some of the consular employees were not here at the section because of the COVID restrictions. So that was one of the challenges when we started resuming operations, particularly on the immigrant visa side, is to look all those cases. There's hundreds of cases that were pending they're not new cases, they're cases that had been started, but maybe they were lacking some document, maybe there's some question that kind of put those cases in kind of a pending status. So we started looking at those and communicating with the petitioner or with a visa applicant on what's the next steps. And we've moved, in excess of 400 cases that in that kind of status to a resolution. And I think that's part of the backlog challenge that we had. It was not just new cases, but it was cases that were in a pending status. So,
do you still communicate mainly via email? Should people know that?
Yes. So, because we often communicate with the petitioner in the United States, and the time zones are different. So, but when someone comes in for an interview or an immigrant visa, for example, and say they're missing something, that their case is not able to be issued right now, we do provide them in writing what they need
to do. Mm-hmm.
So, in many cases, an email is really not necessary. We say, here, you're missing this document, please, because the immigrant visa is very document heavy, unlike the non-immigrant visas. So we're missing this, and then in most cases, the petitioner can simply upload that document into our Consular system and maybe send us an email or just saying, hey, it's uploaded, we see it, and then we can move on to possibly issuance or whatever the next.
And just to make sure, you don't communicate via Telegram, right? Because as you know, Uzbekistan lives on Telegram, so you don't. Telegram is not used in this purpose. Okay,
No, we get a lot of emails. I think where people will not provide their case number or just provide their name. It's like, oh, this is so and so, as if we know them. We get hundreds of emails every day. So we do really ask people that when they reach out to us about their case, they say, here's my case number, here is the visa applicant's name, so we can look it up and see what the status is. If someone's saying, hey, I just updated my medical exam, okay, we can check that.
Like, pay attention to the details.
Not just like,
right?
hey, from John. We don't.
Yeah, I was there on Friday, right?
just help us out.
Security checks on DV lottery winners, they take longer than a few months, right?
No, I would say the security checks for immigrant visas are the same for diversity visa or green card lottery winners as anyone else. So. No, we have already issued a number of green card winners this season, and I think often if everything's smooth with someone's case, they come in for an interview. If everything goes well, in most cases for the DV lotteries, the ones we've seen so far have been quite prepared. They can get their visa the next week.
That's that quick. What does security check consist of in general? What should people expect to be happening during that period?
Well, the security, we have a number of kind of law enforcement security tools that the visa application is like in most countries is reviewed against. So if there are any questions about anything,
backgrounds.
Yeah, we will let you know, but otherwise an applicant just needs to complete their application honestly and accurately. There's nothing else that's required.
And when they get, let's say when they get denied, you do provide explanations,
Yes.
but most of the time that's not enough for people, so they want to know more, and I'm sure you deal with that a lot.
Yes.
What happens if they have additional questions? When is your answer is the final, like no more explanation, this is it?
Well, like you said, we provide a denial in writing, and so for non-immigrant visas, there will be a letter that says, under the section of U.S. law, what this denial is based on. And someone can go to our website, and we do have some things on visa refusals, and also the Department of State has information on this that explains in more like frequently asked questions about what this exactly means, and does it mean can I reapply, can I do these things? We have information about that. For immigrant visas, if there's a denial, usually it's something a little bit more serious or a little more complex because of the higher standards that immigrant visas have. But we will also still provide in writing what the denial might be.
Do the winners know from the start that winning the lottery doesn't guarantee them the immigration visa?
It is on our website. It is on the Department of State's website. It's a good point, and thank you for raising it, because I think there is a misperception that winning the green card lottery is not a guarantee that you get an interview, and it's not a guarantee that you get a visa. It does put you in a pool that if you fill in your application and you get your process moved fairly quickly, that goes through a system that will get you scheduled for an interview. But it's based on a number of factors. So this is what we're trying to do right now. We are trying to, every month, we have scheduled diversity visa applicants because we're trying to get as many applicants as we can before the fiscal year deadline. And at the same time, of course, we can't do DV applications every day because we have other services, as the people going for tourism, the people reuniting with their spouse or child or parent. So we're trying to balance that. But I will say that we are doing double the numbers for green card winners this year than we did pre-pandemic.
Is a person informed about the fact that he might be banned or she might be banned or, let's say, blacklisted for some reason?
So if you had some kind of permanent visa ineligibility, you would be provided that in writing. So say you went to a visa interview and for whatever reason, maybe you overstayed your visa for very, very long.
Violated.
Yes.
Yeah,
and
somewhere.
then you'd be provided, that's not a permanent visa ineligibility, but it can be for an extended period. But the officer then would inform you in writing about the section of law and the consequences. And often we also provide whether an ineligibility is waiverable, whether you can apply for a waiver. It shouldn't be a surprise, but unfortunately I think some people don't handle their own application.
So when you find out that somebody is lying and you deny, right? So the application is inaccurate, whether it's for non-immigrant or immigrant visa, you give them that written explanation about why they're being denied. Does that denial letter say about the fact that that person cannot apply or cannot play the lottery again, or something to consider for the near future?
Most denials are just this is not a permanent denial. It's just, for a non-immigrant visa, you're not qualified for the visa at this time. And I've been in places where someone will come book it, the next day or the next week, and you're like, and we will, in those cases, we'll have another consular officer, a different person, interview that applicant. So something like that, it's not a permanent refusal. But there are some ineligibilities where someone has done something or there's some kind of violation of the law that can be more permanent, and they are provided in writing what that means.
You have a special role in terms of representing the United States. People see American when they talk to you, when they come asking for a visa. And what does it feel like to be that officer, right? You're the gateway. They will remember you forever if they get denied. You determine a lot in terms of cultural connections and relations between countries. It's not the same thing like if you're a political officer, right? Because you just deal with a specific group of people, whereas you're dealing, again, as I said, with the entire society. How do you deal with that challenge? What kind of a role, I guess, that sense of feeling play in your work?
Yes, I would certainly agree that sometimes the first time someone has spoken with an American might be at the visa window, might be the first time, the first impression. So, we want to make sure that our engagements, our interactions are professional, courteous, friendly. Of course, it's a challenge to refuse someone in a very friendly way, but we do try to be professional about it. We're not passing any judgment. It is, we're following the U.S. law, but we want to come away. We want people to leave the consular section, whether they've been issued or refused, that they believe at least they've had a fair and professional process. I'm not under any illusions that applying for a visa is a fun or a great way to spend your morning. I know it's a bureaucratic process. You go through many steps.
People approach this very emotionally. I'm sure you see this every day, right? I mean, it's excitement, it's nervousness, it's everything. It's a mixture of so many different feelings. And sometimes they even though they suspect that they may get denied, they go for it anyways. It's kind of an investment, like they take that risk. And then whenever I've talked to any applicants, especially those who have been denied, they remember every detail. They remember who they talked to. They describe the physical appearance of that person, the interview process. What I'm trying to say is that this is a lifelong experience sometimes for them. And do you get angry people? Because we have seen some really angry, denied, Uzbeks who can now, especially, they can go on social media. They can talk about that. They can complain. And I've seen Uzbeks who've been denied visas go to the MFA of Uzbekistan and, demand justice. How do you deal with those situations?
Well, we try to deal with them professionally. We understand that there is a lot of emotion, and I'm not going to say that we get every decision 100% correctly. We look at every case individually, and we look at the totality of circumstances, and we try to make our best judgment based on U.S. law. And so we do get, on occasion, people are very upset, and we just usually, in most cases, just allow that person to cool down, and we don't get into kind of a war of words on this is why I'm refusing, and I get that.
What is not tolerated during the interview? When do you say like, no, please leave? Have you had those kind of situations?
It's rare, but usually, after we've made our decision, and after you've given if it's a refusal, and we give, no one's ever really clamoring when they got a visa issuance. So it's always when it's about a visa refusal. When we've given the decision, given someone's passport back, then the interview is concluded. And obviously, if someone lingers and stays longer,
asking for answers,
we're politely, go, seek this information. But of course, at some point, that person is being a hindrance to other customers who are also, their time is valuable. They're waiting for an interview as well. So, it's very rarely we need to do more than that. You just stop, engaging. We're not going to answer those questions. We've made the decision, and it resolves itself. The person realizes they're not getting anything further.